Welcome to the Babes Talking Business podcast, the space where female entrepreneurs are elevated and celebrated with your hosts, Shani Thompson and Lauren Kerr.
We're two best friends with over 10 years in business, a global impact and community of thousands. We've talked on stages around the world and have recently navigated the evolution of maiden to mother together. We're here to share the advice, the lessons, and the laughs along the way.
And we're inviting you to sit at the table and be in the room with women who are making bold moves, backing themselves, and showing you what's also available for you.
So, in this episode, we're going to be talking about what makes high performers, what separates them, how do you become one, so you have a tangible roadmap of the things that you can focus on. Because I think what we've noticed in the last 10 years in business, that there's definitely some precursors or indicators of women who have success in their leadership, the way that they run their businesses. So I'm excited to chat about that on today's episode.
Yeah, and as well, like I actually remember when I was fresh in business and like I heard the word high performer and I was like, how do I be one of those? Like I want to be a high performer. What does that even look like? Or what does that? So I'm excited to kind of tease this out with you because I know you work with high performers. That's your area of expertise. So yes, let's get into it. But first we have some rapid fire questions and I'm very excited to hear about you. What has been...
You're already pointing at them.
We're just going to have to zoom in on your face.
No.
What has been your biggest lesson recently, Lozzie?
My most recent lesson or failure, I would say, is getting my eyebrows laminated. So if you're looking at them, I'm going to go like this. I hate them. I really hate them.
I think they look nice.
I've had them tinted like twice before in my life. This is the third time. And usually you have a shower and they go lighter. And I'm just like, I feel like I've got two slugs on my face.
Are you like in the shower like this?
I'm literally scrubbing them, and I was just like, so my lesson I've learned this week that I'm telling myself and reminding myself is I no longer want to get my eyebrows tinted because I don't like them. What about you? What's been your lesson or failure this week?
I just want to say, I'm not just saying it. They look nice. They look nice.
You.
My biggest lesson is to follow my gut and do not launch anything in a Mercury freaking retrograde. So I was meant to launch a book 2 weeks ago. And it's just been a hot mess. Like Mercury has just really done me a solid. It is direct again right now, but we are in the shadow of it and things are still messing up. Like tech-wise, I've had to push the launch date back like 4 times now. A podcast went live today on my podcast channel, like announcing the book launch. And I'm like, no, delete, retract. Like at 6 a.m. this morning, I was on my computer like, how did I forget? Like it's just been so stressful. So Mercury retrogrades, nothing gets launched anymore. It's just going to be time for just the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, I think I spoke about my last episode, and this might be something you talk about another day, but I lost my computer this week. Like not only did my computer broke and then I got it fixed at Apple, I legit left it and lost it in the shopping center. So just yeah, I'll blame it on the moon. It's the moon's fault.
It's Mercury's fault.
It's that great.
Yeah.
Great.
Anyway. Back to high performers.
Yes.
So, okay, let's talk about first thing off the bat, like what distinguishes a high performer? Like what's their skill set? Like what if you could explain it? And I'm a brand newbie. I want to be a high performer, but I don't know what it is. Can you explain it? Like, what do they do? How do they move? How do they act? Like, why are they so different?
I love this. And it's funny because I think it's only the last like 12 months or so that I've actually honed in on high performance, being like, yes, that's what I teach. That's what I know. That's what I embody. That's what I can help you become. Because as you know, my background's in psychology. I've always been obsessed with how people think and but I love positive psychology, which is that strength-based practice. It's like what can we focus on and what's going to move the needle and what's going to make you feel good. And I've gone back to a lot of my psychology books this year thinking about like what actually pinpoints a high performer, not just like what do we notice, but what actually has science found, what has research found. And it's funny because now that I've gone back and I've looked at the books and I've looked at the research, I'm like, I can pinpoint that and see that in even you and myself and the guests we have on the podcast and the women that we've seen in our business have success. And they definitely do. They think different. They lead differently, hone in on specific skills that they want to master, and they structure their days different. They definitely work different. And what I love about it too is once you work out how these people work and live and lead, there's actually things you can like, hey, I can embody that, or if I can tweak that, or I'm going to try to focus on that. So as we're teasing these things out in today's episode, I really would encourage you guys listening in to think, ooh, like I don't do that, or if I focus on that, I wonder what my performance or my output would be. So yeah, high performers, their psychology is different. They actually think differently. And it's interesting because you and I had this conversation the other day about, I think even in business, something that we've seen a lot of women struggle with. And we're just like, like, I don't get it. They struggle to have a vision. Like we
did have this conversation.
Yeah, you ask them and you're like, what
do you want to create?
And they just like are dumbfounded, like, it's wild. But high performers, you can ask a high performer that and they can instantly tell you everything. Like they spend multiple times a day, like so much time in a day, not just thinking about where they're at, but where they want to be. Like they're always future stepping, like future forecasting. So they're not just focused on what my strengths are here and what I want to bring into the situation, but I could tell you what skill set I need to master to attain the success that I want to have in the future. Before I step into a situation, my psychology is already thinking about what's the energy I want to bring into the situation, what's the intention I have, how do I want to make people feel. So they're so intentional. They're not just in a moment, just like, oh, like I'm just winging it. They're thinking about, okay, why am I here and what do I want to create next? So not out of a manipulative, like if I do this, you'll do this. Like it's not like I'm premeditated. It's just like I know where I'm going. And they hold themselves to a higher standard where they're constantly multiple times a day checking in with themselves, being like, hey, is this how the future me would show up? Like, what do I need to improve in this instant? Is this a scenario or a skill set that I need to focus on and strengthen? Like, and they do it with compassion. It's not like beating themselves up. They're in a place of curiosity, being like, okay, like, is this something that's going to align with what I said is important to me?
Yeah. So they're kind of like super clear on where they're going, but then they're also very intentional with like who they need to be, the skills they have to have, the characteristics, the qualities, the traits. If they don't have those things yet, they're working on mastering those things. And then they're taking like the inspired action to the thing they want to have. It's not like, what would you love to create by the end of this year? And it's like just a little bit of growth would be great. Like it's very clear.
Yeah, it's intentional.
Specific, intentional.
So if you're someone who's saying, maybe you're listening to this, like start with your psychology and with your vision. Like, do you have a clear map or a clear idea of what you want to create? What's important to you? Like 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And if that feels far-fetched for you, I can promise you can ask a high performer and they'll tell you like straight away. Like they won't even hesitate. That's just how they think. And I was really interested when I was like doing the research on this and thinking about like working with high performers. I was like, I'm curious, is a high performer like, is there something that predetermines them? Like, is it a personality trait? But personality's got nothing to do with it. 50% of high performers are extroverts, 50% are introverts. And I'm like, is it like, are they confident? Like, I feel like high performers, like they have some kind of skill set that gives them that confidence, but that confidence actually just comes from their belief in their ability to figure things out. It's not that they think I'm great at this, or I'm a great public speaker, I'm a great leader, or I'm great at creating content, or I'm great at building businesses. They're just like, no.
I'm great at figuring it out.
I'll put myself in that situation and I trust myself that I'll figure it out.
Oh, I love that. I definitely feel like we have both like winged it so hard in business over the last few years, and it's just that trust that it will work out. Hey,
I think it's a reoccurring theme though. If you listen to any of the podcasts we have guests on, actually it's a reoccurring theme when you listen to any, like watch a documentary or read a biography, like anyone who's done anything great, I think you'll see this pattern come up. It's just like they've got this vision inside of them and they're not obsessed with the how. They'll relinquish the how, but they know why and like why it's
And,
important and
yeah.
what they need to do.
Yeah.
Hey friend, it's Lauren here. Just a short little interruption before we continue with this episode to let you know about an exciting opportunity for you to come play in my world. You're listening to this episode because you're a high performer. There is part of you that is hungry and excited to be and have more. You want to see what you're capable of. You want to reach your full potential. And I know the next evolution of you is just waiting for your permission to unleash her. And I'm here not only to give you the permission that you're allowed to want more, but also to meet you at your edge and support you as you step into the next evolution of you and your business. The doors have officially opened to the most exciting and expansive containers that you get to involve in, the Vortex. The Vortex is for you if you feel like you've hit a glass ceiling. No matter how much work or effort you put in, the needle just isn't moving in your business or in your finances. You have reached capacity. There is literally no more hours in the week to create more, and it's coming at the expense of your health, your self-care, and time with the ones that you love. It's for you if you feel like you've outgrown certain situations, environments, or relationships, and your current circle of influence is stunting your growth. The Vortex is for you if you are used to being the problem solver in your business. However, your lack of leadership skills and systems has created a bottleneck. And the Vortex is for you if you know you are ready for more. You're hungry for your next level of expansion and growth, but the fear of failure or what others may think holds you back. It's time to unleash all of you, to unlock all that's meant for you. Come join me inside the Vortex. No noise, no distractions, no external opinions, just pure fire and focus, potent energy, clarity, safety, and certainty. It's grounded expansion. It's internal stillness and external speed. Quantum leap. It's turning you on and turning your income up. It's the space to magnetize everything that's meant for you. So inside the Vortex, I'll be supporting you with your psychology, your evolution, becoming the most potent version of you, knowing exactly how she thinks, what her visions are, her values, her energetics, her mindset, getting really clear on the vision. Then together, we get really clean on your structure, your systems, and your boundaries. So you have a clear roadmap you can execute with a calm nervous system that allows you to create more income, more impact, and more freedom from your overflow. And then together, we master tools and unique high-paying skills for effortless expansion, such as feminine leadership, messaging and marketing, and helping you build a personal brand so you get to embody the evolution of you and your business. And the byproduct, you increase your income and your impact whilst reducing the personal hours you spend on your business so that you can have more freedom for self-care, family, and travel. You have structures and systems that allow you to spend more time in your feminine energy, allowing you to soften and be more playful. You create a personal brand so you're able to build credibility, authority, leadership, and attract more soul-aligned opportunities and relationships. You experience more freedom and fulfillment in your business because you've mastered leadership skills and boundaries that allow you to work in your zone of genius and do the things you enjoy. You become so rock solid on who you are, what you're here to do, and your roadmap of exactly how you're going to do it, that you've magnetized more visionaries and expanders into your orbit. And you run and scale your business in a sustainable and soulful way with a calm nervous system. So the growth is linear to the expansion and the fulfillment that you also experience in your marriage, parenthood, friendships, and health. So babe, if you're ready to evolve and unleash all of you to unlock all that's meant for you, head to the show notes and check out the details for the Vortex. Or you can message me on Instagram and I can also send you the details. I'm also going to gift you my free masterclass, Her Evolution, which is in the show notes, where I will guide you through your very own evolution. So you can walk away with your unique business roadmap, knowing exactly what you need to focus your time and energy on to be able to unlock that next level of freedom, impact, and income. So I'll see you inside the Vortex, and let's get back to the episode.
And you mentioned before something else about a high performer is like how they structure their days.
Yeah.
How, like, what does the research say about that? Like what differentiates a high performer to someone who's not, with how their days look? Or
Yeah. And this isn't just like in business, like this is performing highly is like professional athletes, is as parents. Like a high performer isn't just someone who's successful in business too. So if you can apply this to any area of your life, whether it's in your relationships, it's sport, it's parenting. So they literally prioritize and structure their day knowing what's important. So if you could ask a high performer, and chances are they will probably have a calendar and they will block things out. And it's not just blocking like Monday to Friday at work. It's like, no, actually in this period I work on writing the book, like the high paying activities. I know it's going to move the needle. In this period I'm on sales calls. In this period I'm creating content. In this period I'm doing my financials. And it's not just work stuff. High performers, they have a desire to perform highly in all areas of life. So chances are likely they'll have in their calendar, hey, this is actually where I'm turned off and I'm having family time. This is when I'm going on a holiday. This is when I do my hobbies. I go to a dance class. So they are really, what like separates them too is they are intentional and protect their time, but they also make sure they know what's going to move the needle in whatever they're trying to perform highly in, if that makes sense. Like they know what the outputs are.
Yeah. I see you do this really well. And I think we've spoken about that before, but just like the efficiency, your level of efficiency in how you like structure your days, like around Stevie's naps and stuff, and just like the shit you get done in a small window of time is just like, how does she do that?
But it's structure.
But it's structure. Yeah,
it's
love that. I love that.
I was thinking too when I was looking, because I took heaps of notes because I wanted to, like, there was so many things that I found really interesting when I was looking at the research too, because I think they're things that you and I naturally do and what drives high performers. And when they're showing up and they're doing their work, what actually drives their work too is fulfillment. So it's actually when they're designing and working out what's a priority for them, it's actually they're going to prioritize things in terms of what's going to be meaningful and purposeful for them. They talk about, which is funny because we spoke on this in the last episode, they're really good at mastering transitions. So they'll be in business mode, they can transition into mum mode or transition into friend mode. So they know when to wear one hat, and when they're wearing that hat, they're really focused and present rather than trying to multitask, and they can transition to another role. So even in this space, if you're like, okay, I want to perform highly in whatever role that you're deciding it in, really have a look at how you're structuring your week. Like have good boundaries when you're on. And they also have really good boundaries when they're off. So they're prioritizing time in their day for rest, time in their week for rest, so holidays, time offline. But yeah, they're also making sure that's things that they've scheduled time for joy. Yeah. And that's how they can sustain high performance over a longer period of time.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was talking about this with my mum, of all people, yesterday, because obviously, like, we both work from home, you and I, and because I work from home, I think it's really easy for people to just assume that like they can just waltz on over and pay you a visit because you're home. And I was trying to explain this to my grandma, who's like, hello, like I'm going to be getting my hair done in the area tomorrow. Like, can I pop in at 11? And I was saying to my mom, no, like my days are structured. Like they're so meticulously structured that I can't just allow a little walk. I love my grandma. I love you so much, grandma. But I'm like, so structured, and that time block is like dedicated to getting certain things done. And that's like, I was saying to mum, like it can be really hard sometimes as a business owner because you could allow potentially like things to bleed into your calendar because you are at home. You can just go to the kitchen and open the fridge and the pantry and I might just see what's happening over here, or like you can fall into that trap. So yeah, the structure thing is like, yes, having it, but also I think it's really important to abide by the structures, especially if you are working from home like we do.
Yeah, and I think we've been saying this last episode as well. Actually, that structure, like I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially women, are resistant to the structure. So they feel like it's like restriction or it's limitation, and it's like that masculinity in their business, but it's that masculinity that gives you the freedom and the flow and the opportunity to be expansive. Like you need those things to hold you, otherwise you never get things done.
Yeah.
So if you're having resistance against having structure in your business, just know the people who perform highly and consistently without burning out, it's the structures that hold them. And that is what research has found over and over again with high performers. And they've also found that And I think this is something that you and I have only landed in recently, and this spoke into the very first episode we did this season with most people who have success or master success or early success in whatever profession that they're in. They master that success, they arrive at that level through like a lot of multitasking. So I don't know if you can resonate, like when we launched our business 8 years ago, a decade ago, different businesses, we did everything.
Yeah,
like,
we wore all the hats.
We wore all the hats.
Yeah.
And I think it's so funny that this is where we've learned. I think we've from reading that book,
10x. 10x is better than 2x.
Everyone, you need to read it if you haven't already. But that was one thing that becomes really apparent is high performers. Yes, they reach their early levels of success through multitasking, but for them to then continue to elevate their success and grow their success, it really comes about honing in and simplifying like particular skill sets. So rather trying to doing all the things, find one or two things that you're either really passionate about or really moves the needle in your business. And that's what you need to focus on. And you need to get really good at saying no to anything else and delegating. I know we had this conversation in the car even on the way here. 'Cause I'm like, and I was reading this book about it actually this week. And I think I've spoken openly before, but that's probably been my biggest challenge is like saying no. Like I actually have to have, I did a post on it on my social media if this is something you struggle with too, like 30 ways to say no. Because I literally, like I have to message Shani sometimes for coaching and be like, how do I say no? She's like, no. Like, what do I say? And this book was saying at this level, and if you want to continue to perform highly, make your innate, like your automatic response, no. Like just, you don't even think about it. You just say no to everything. And then you give yourself time to convince yourself if you want to say yes. Because I think a lot of people, me included, do the opposite. I say yes. And then I convince myself like, oh, I really should have said no. Well, do the other way, innately and instinctively say no. And then give yourself time to change your mind if you want to. We can go back and say yes to things that are actually important.
Well, I think the easiest way to do that is to be like, can I get back to you about that? I need to chat with such and such about that, or let me think about how that could work. And that's just like my default is no to everything.
You do that so well. I see you do that. Like I'm embodying that. Every time I'm getting asked, I'm like, what would Shani say? Shani would say, can I get back to you about that? I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Or just don't have a spare bedroom like I do. I don't have a spare bedroom. So when people ask, can they stay? I'm like, no, you actually can't. My introverted self has made sure there's no spare bedroom at my house.
Maybe that's why I need to have a second baby, just so we get rid of the second room.
Yeah. Hey.
Dan's like, why are we having another one? Just so we don't have people stay anymore.
So let's talk about maybe their skills in terms of how they lead. Because I can definitely, like with the leaders that are kind of like in our space, I can definitely tell like who's a great like high performing leader and who's still finding their feet. Maybe they're a high performer, but they're still kind of like, mastering that skill, or someone who's just like, oh my gosh, this person needs to lead.
This person needs to lead.
What's the difference?
Interestingly, one thing that high performers have that separates them, and it's like I said, everything that I'm mentioning in this episode of things that people can work on is emotional intelligence. And so when they're going to situations or conversations, or even just when they go into their everyday life, they're priming the emotion that they want to have. So I'm like, they're not reactive. Instead, responsive might be the better word. But let's say we're going into a conversation where it might be I'm trying to solve conflict. And if I'm going into that conversation being like, I want to feel peace, or I want us to both feel respect for each other, and I intentionally go into that with that. Mm-hmm. But maybe anger comes up in that conversation, frustration, resentment, like those emotions are natural. And I think some people, when you're in it, you just think that people who maybe handle those situations better just aren't feeling those emotions, where high performers feel them, but they don't let their emotions hijack what they're intentionally trying to feel. So they prime the feelings that they want in their day-to-day, but also when they're leading, they're going into conversations, whether it's messaging a teamie in your inbox, whether it's hopping on a call, whether it's negotiating, and they're deliberate, priming the emotion beforehand, but also deliberate in choosing what they feel in the moment, even if a completely different emotion comes up.
So like it's kind of like being able to hold the emotional intelligence to not react and have like a knee-jerk reaction to, say, a comment or something that's been said where it'd be easier to just like be like, no, this is how it is, or it's just like holding that and kind of like holding their tongue as well. Like if they really want to say something, but they're just like, no, this isn't the time or the place or the space.
I feel like you've always had the upper hand on this because you have like such a good poker face. Like even when I first met you, I was like, you're just like poised all the time. So even like when you're upset or if you're angry, like if someone pissed you off, you wouldn't know because you're just like, oh. Like I remember when I first met you, I'm like, is that just like, is she putting that on? And like 10 years later, I'm like, no, that's Shani. Like she's just got such a poised poker face that you wouldn't know what emotion's trickling underneath.
No, you know what it is? It must be the way my brain processes things, but I have to sit on things and really like process it to understand like how I feel. So like I actually had this happen recently. I was putting out a massive fire in my business and I had someone in my team who was like, I'm like having a meltdown. Can we talk about this? And I was literally like, no, like just give me time. And when I conceptualize like what is going on, we can talk. And that took me 2 weeks, but that was like everything's going to be fine. Don't worry, but let's just not talk right now. We don't need to have the conversation right now. And I think that can be really frustrating for others, but it's just how I process. I should learn how to play poker.
Yeah, you'd be good at it. You'd be very good at it. But yeah, there's definitely that when it comes into their leadership and how they lead. And I think that's what leadership is. It's learning how to communicate with one-on-one with people, big groups of people. So emotional intelligence is a big part of that, and being very, I like to say, like taking radical responsibility for the energy that you bring into a space and how people leave you. Like you take responsibility. Yes, you're not in control of somebody else's emotions, but you can influence how you make them feel by deliberately choosing what you're choosing to bring into that situation and how you choose to respond.
Yeah.
Something that high performers also do, and you might notice this, is they naturally do radiate joy and enthusiasm. Like that's what gives them influence. And that's why people radiate and want to be, they're magnetic and people want to be around them. Like they choose joy. And it doesn't mean that like shit isn't happening behind the scenes or life isn't stressful. Like that is their default. Or even if it's not their default, because I think some of us actually have to work on it, but that's what they bring into situations and businesses is it's joy and it's enthusiasm.
Yeah. They decide to make it feel fulfilling and satisfying regardless of what's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah. And like, I feel like I notice that even women in our business, and like I said, it's easy to see as an outsider. And I hope when you guys are listening to this, maybe it gives you some reflection. Like they're wondering why they're not getting results in their businesses, or they're wondering why people aren't being attracted to them. I'm like, look at the energy you're putting out.
Yeah.
Like walk into a conference room or walk into a room and like have a smile in your face, put your shoulders back. Like you're repelling people unconsciously. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy for you. You're saying like, I nobody likes me, but it's because you're acting like that. So people aren't gravitating towards you.
Yeah. It's all about energy in the sense of like, I've always said this to women that I coach. You can show up a certain way online. Let's say like you post the perfect copy. It's got the hook, the body, the call to action. You do the pretty reels. You do all the things that are logical that you feel like will attract people to you. But if energetically you are stinky, like people can smell bullshit through the screen. And it's also like, I've said this to people before, it's something you can't hide. Like you cannot, I feel like, when you just know like you're following someone or they've shown up a certain way or they've said something and you're just like, I don't know, like this is just stinky vibes over here. It's not something you can hide. It's not, and it's actually something you can't teach either, of how to stop doing it, other than just like, raise your standards, raise your energy. How you vibrate is definitely felt by all people around you. And I guess like on reflection, I can really see how the high performers that I know in my life, regardless of what's going on,
they choose joy.
They choose the energy that they vibrate at. Yeah.
And a way that high performers also, they consciously cultivate this, and like high performers generally high perform in all facets of their life. Like they strive to be better in their marriages, in their friendships, in their wealth, in their health. And so if you're someone who's like, okay, like how, like you said before, like how do you give someone the tools to like amplify their energy? It's like changing your state. Like it comes back to like the simple foundations of like, does gratitude work for you? Does exercise and movement work to you? Do you need to get your nutrition in order? Do you need to get better sleep? Even something simple as just like fake smiling for like 10 seconds actually will release endorphins where you will feel happy. It's like your posture, put your shoulders back, put your head up. Like if you're someone who's like, I know I don't naturally radiate joy and I'm not bringing enthusiasm into the interactions that I'm having in my business or in the workplace. Yeah. Start with those small things. You might feel like they're small, but that's what compounds so you can step and cultivate joy and magnetize that to you as well.
Well, I just fake smiled the whole time you were talking and I feel awesome.
You feel great. You feel great. Dance parties work, music work. Yeah, so bringing joy and talking about energy as well, they not only like prime themselves, they prime the emotion they want to bring and they're intentional about the emotion they want to experience, but they actually also expect positive back. Like they do raise their standards. Like they go into their day and expect it to be a beautiful day. Like obviously like misfortunes happen to people and that's not something you can't go around expecting that or planning for that, but they literally are optimists. They go in thinking like, of course today's going to be a great day. Yeah. Of course that person's going to want to join my team. Of course that person's is going to check out and use the checkout link. Of course that person's going to reply to me. Of course that person's going to be excited to see my follow-up. Like they expect positive outcomes.
Yeah, because why not?
Why not? Like if I'm joyful and I love people and I'm respectful and I'm bringing value to the workplace, I would hope that that's what you would want to get back. And so I think it's that mindset shift, but it's also like it's choosing joy.
Yeah.
It's choosing what you focus on.
Yeah. What would you say are like the biggest traps that high performers can fall into?
So there's 3. And it's funny because I feel like these are ones that like I'm constantly catching myself on too. And I think I've personally seen women in our business fall into these traps and it's been kind of the predictor of their demise. Like I've seen it's then been what's cascaded the flow-on effects. The first one is superiority, being superior. Like, so opposite with that, being humble. Like if you stop being humble and you keep thinking that you're better than everybody else, no one else has got anything to bring to the table, no one else gets it. Like even that saying, it's lonely at the top. If you hear those people saying that, they've stopped being humble and they've got this, they think they're separate from their team, from the company. That is one of the biggest predictors of people's demise.
Wow. I've just had like flashbacks of all the people I've worked with over the last, 8 years who have definitely fallen into that trap.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I remember this isn't just like hearsay. This is like research done on high performers. They've done like, I think it was over 9,000 high performers and they interviewed them and all of them, like life isn't always sunshine and rainbows. And they all had like an incident where they've had to pivot in business, rebuild, start something new. They've lost, whether it was a marriage, it's a relationship breakdown. And upon reflection, they've been able to put it down to these 3 things. And one of them was, like they've stopped being humble, but they use superiority. Yeah, thank you. It's that word.
That is a really hard word to say.
Especially if you're Loz. If you haven't clicked on now, we have Lozisms and I make words up. So superiority.
There you go. You said it.
Yay. So that's the first one. Stay humble. Stay humble.
Now I've just got that Kendrick Lamar song in my head.
Sing it.
No.
Come on,
I'm not singing it.
Is it a rap or is it a song?
Yeah, no, you don't want me singing that. Go, next one.
Okay. So staying humble. The second one is satisfaction. So they stop gratitude. They stop being grateful. They, instead of being there's this saying like instead of being in the gain, you're in the gap. So instead of thinking about how far you've come or like, oh my gosh, like look at all my abundance, or yes, I might not be where I want to be, but look where I am compared to 10 years ago or even last week. Like it's that growth mindset. And a lot of high performers, when they stop performing highly when they fall into the gap and they start focusing on all the shit that isn't working, or they're not where they want to be yet, or so-and-so quit, or the grass is greener over there, and they start getting frustrated and they stop making time to enjoy what they've built.
I've definitely fallen into that trap. Really like frustrated at the lack of results or the timeline that it's taking to get to where you want to go next. And you're so like tunnel vision on, this is taking so long. I thought I'd be there faster, quicker. I thought, I've definitely caught myself there where I'm just like, not satisfied. It's frustration instead.
Yeah. I think all these things are things that high performer, because all the other stuff we spoke about before, if you are a high performer listening to this, it probably none of it seems new to you. You're probably like, yeah, I do that. It's like, it's just naturally, it's inbuilt in us. Like, but then you're probably going to catch yourself in some of this stuff about like, what are the gaps or what are the traps? And like, we can fluctuate. And if you don't keep your fingers on the pulse, it's really easy to just keep sliding. Because I'm the same. I've noticed, I'm like, oh wow, like I've been so, and it's not a bad thing, but I'm so excited about new projects and things that I'm focusing on, and that the fact that I'm not where I want to be yet, that I'm like, oh, I'm starting to feel the dissatisfaction like creep up. And so a really easy way to like just anchor into satisfaction is just things like your gratitude journal, or some really good journal prompts are just like, what was great about today, or like what we've been saying, like what was our biggest lesson this week, like just flipping things. They are growth mindseted, and they are based in strength-based practice or positive psychology on how far have I come, or what's been my biggest blessing today, my biggest lesson this week, or what did I gain from today's experience. So just keep focusing on the gain rather than the gap.
Love it.
And then the last trap was they use another word for it, but I'm always about like flipping it so it's positive. It's like remaining focused. So like if the trap is like just focusing on everything and throwing spaghetti in a bowl, just thinking that something's going to work, which I know we've kind of both fallen into the trap too in the last couple of years.
Well, because you're a high performer, so you can do it all. And you can do it the best, and you can do it faster and quicker and all the things. So you do fall into that trap naturally to be like, oh, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got to keep performing highly. It's about continuously like looking at going back to your structure and being like, all right, what's important? What are the things that are moving the needle this week? Making sure you keep the main thing. And that can change. Like the main thing might not be the main thing anymore. Like you've just got to make sure you are honing in and mastering unique skills for the level that you're playing at. Because if you keep trying to multitask and do all the things, you'll drop the ball and you'll be wondering, why am I not getting the same output, or why is the needle not moving in my business? It's like, oh, I've fallen into that trap. I was warned. I have to stay focused. So if you want to remain a high performer, it's staying humble, staying satisfied, and staying focused.
Yeah.
The rest of it for a lot of people comes naturally, but if it doesn't, some of those things we spoke about in today's episode will hopefully help you give some tangibles on how to improve it. But one thing that I felt was really interesting that I just did want to touch on with high performers and how they lead with leadership. And I was reflecting on this because I've noticed this in myself too. I actually have a play with you. When you think of a high performer, someone in your circle, and you ask them, why do they do what do they do? Even if I asked you, why do you do what you do? Why do you keep pushing yourself? Like, why is enough never enough for you?
Because if I think about for me, because I'm passionate about seeing like how far I can go. Like what's my edge? And then when I get there, like how can I go even further? It's kind of like a game. Like I just want to see like what I'm capable of, because in my mind I'm like, oh my gosh, how freaking cool would that be? And then I just want to action it out. Like I'm not going to like set a goal and not, like that just sounds dumb to me. Set a goal and not go for it.
If I told you to slow down and just relax, why would you not do that?
I just can't. Like I can't not do anything.
Why?
Because it doesn't bring me fulfillment or purpose or meaning. Like I feel like life has to be meaningful so that you can get at the end of your life and look back and be like, I led a life that was so freaking meaningful. But for you to do that, for you to be on your deathbed feeling like fulfilled with the meaningful life that you've lived, you've got to be able to say like, yeah, I freaking gave it my all. I went all in.
See, like that is a definition of a high performer. So I feel like if you asked any high performer, you'd probably get the same answer. So there's this need of necessity Like if you tell me like, why do you do what you do? I'm like, I have to. It's in my DNA.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how to not. It's like there's this necessity behind what we do. Like we don't know how to stop. And if we did, it's like this need, like, but what would I leave on the table? Like my life, what if I left, like, what if I have regret? Like I've only got one life. I've got to squeeze the most out of it. And it's that necessity that makes us be really good leaders, because we actually want to serve, because we find purpose and meaning in like going after what we want in the pursuit of helping others and making the world a better place, because we feel like we've got this obligation to. And it's not like I have to serve and I have to do this. It's out of, it brings me purpose.
Yeah.
And joy.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, when you hear them complaining about leadership or servant leadership or stepping up and doing things, it's like, it's not coming from a place of them where they're like, I have to do this because I'm born to. Yes, they're not driven by recognition. None of what drives them is like, I need someone to applaud me. I need to get a prize. I need to go on stage. Like what drives high performers is like, this is necessity. It's like intrinsically motivated. I do what I do because it brings me joy, and I like stepping out of my comfort zone. And this is where positive psychology comes in. There's a psychologist called Csikszentmihalyi, I'm pretty sure his name is, and he does this study of flow. And I think I've spoken about it in my book too. Like for people to experience fulfillment, like, and it's called flow, you've got to be stretching yourself to a point where you are actually stretched. Like otherwise you're in your comfort zone and you're bored. And so high performers constantly stretch themselves because that's where they find flow, and that's why they find fulfillment.
Yeah. So I feel like when you're stretched, that's like when you get the most work done and all your most amazing work gets done.
And you're focused.
Yeah.
And you're driven. And you're like, your blinders are on.
I have a question about that though, right? So if I rewind back to like when I first started in my network marketing business 8 years ago, I would say maybe the first 3 years, I was recognition, like it wasn't like the be all and end all, but I definitely did things because I wanted to, but I was also excited about the recognition. Whereas then I got to a point in my business where I was like, I couldn't give two shits about the recognition. Like, I don't need the trophy. I don't need to be on stage. You don't need to put the spotlight on me. Actually, get me out of the spotlight.
Yeah.
Would you say that like a young high performer, as in like early in their journey, like that would be normal for them? Because I am thinking about some high performers that I know that they're not driven by the recognition, but they do enjoy it to an extent.
Yeah, and it might be like they're still transitioning to that phase of becoming a high performer, and there's that recognition piece at the start is what they need to incentivize them. It's what gives them, they might not have the self-belief yet, and so that belief and applause from others is like, hey, I'm actually doing it. Like it's not just me. Like it builds their self-belief up, because maybe it's not there to start with, but once they've got the self-belief and they're like, I'm actually doing it, they start, their fulfillment actually then would transfer from actually doing the work. Like I'm actually pulling my fulfillment out of like coaching people, helping people with their health and wellness, whatever, like they're finding their flow in. So that's when you would pull that from the actual experience of like leading yourself and doing the work and leading others.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Like when you look at it, I'm like, okay, because when I think of women, like just naturally that I see leading and having success, and people that I'm inspired by that have created success, I can see how all that would show up. But if you're somebody who's like, I'm not getting the results in my business, I'm not feeling activated, I'm not feeling fulfilled, I would encourage you to look back on, how are you thinking? Like what's your psychology like? How are you moving and structuring your day within your business? Like how do you actually work within your business? And then how do you lead? Like, are you leading and taking radical responsibility for the energy that you bring into interactions, how people, like responsibility for how you make people feel when they leave interactions? And are you doing it for recognition, or are you actually pushing your edge and putting yourself in situations out of necessity because like it's intrinsically motivating for you? Because what continues to drive high performers is that it's satisfaction. It's work that's meaningful and purposeful. And when they're structuring their days, like we said, they're very protective and deliberate on what's on their calendar, not just because of what's going to make them money, what's going to bring them joy and be meaningful and purposeful.
Ooh, I love it. It's actually really cool to kind of understand more about the psychology and the brains behind a high performer, because I knew what it was like intellectually, but yeah, it was really good to kind of like dive deep. And I think as well, this episode would be so good for those who are high performers, who can really like distinguish certain parts of what we've spoken about to be like, yeah, I do that, but this is such a great stepping tool for them to now go and like expand in that space.
Yeah. And like I said, it's either or, like not either or, but if you're working to become a high performer and you're not performing at that level yet, then take what we said at the first half of the episode. Or if you are a high performer, just know that like high performers still lose everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes high performers are focusing so much on their business that they're not focusing on their marriage and they lose relationships.
Yeah.
They take the eye off of the ball that once moved the business in the needle in their business, then their business is starting to go downhill. So it's not a high performer just because you're a high performer doesn't mean you're going to stay there. It's constantly evolving and growing. And so if you can focus on the last 3 things that we spoke about as well, it's going to make sure that you continuously high perform in all areas of your life that are important to you.
Love it. Thanks, Lozzie.
You are so welcome. I love this conversation.
So, rapid fire question to wrap up the episode. Who are you appreciating today or
Celebrating? I'm celebrating you
Aww.
this week. Shani just said it just like really casually at the start of the episode. She wrote a book. Like, excuse me, she didn't even tell me. She's like, I found out like everybody else on social media and I messaged her and I was like, what the fuck? You wrote a book? Like,
I didn't keep it a secret from you though. It just happened.
How did you just happen to write a book?
I was in my flow.
In your flow. Well, congratulations. I'm shouting out
baby.
Shani, who
Thanks,
has just written a book. What's it called?
It's called The Alchemy Blueprint. How to live a joyful life as an entrepreneur without sacrificing yourself.
It's going to be a goodie.
I'm so
We're going to have to
excited.
do another episode on it. As we said, maybe when we do the episode of my blueprint chart, we can tease out your book because I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to share. It's definitely, Mercury retrograde is still stuffing me up. Hopefully it's out there in the universe when this episode goes live.
What are you celebrating?
I want to celebrate my sister. I caught up with her over the weekend and she is just like doing it so well. She's a mama and she's running a business and she has minimal support. Like she's got my mum that helps her and she also has her partner that helps her. But like I'm like seeing her run her business in like the nap windows and like thick in it, you know, with a 1.5-year-old. So just like chatting with her on Friday, I was like, fly out, girl, you're doing so amazing. Like she just released a course. She's just like doing all this stuff. And I'm like, how are you doing it? So shout out to Kayla, my sis. Just so proud of her and like all the mums out there. Let's just like expand that to all the mums out there who are running businesses and running families at the same time. Like, oof, we see you. We are there with you.
We're celebrating you.
We're
this week.
celebrating you. Yeah.